My name is Dr. James Bryant. I'm the founder and president of Engineer Your Success, a executive coaching, leadership development, and consulting company where I help engineers or people with an engineering background design and live a life where they can win at work and at home. I'm also the host of the Engineer Your Success podcast, where we provide these tools, tips, and techniques to help business owners and senior leaders thrive both at work and at home. And it is my pleasure to be here talking to the group today just about this whole concept of work-life balance.
So, James, I have to ask, you specialize in dealing with sort of STEM career folks, engineering types. Engineers don't think like the rest of us, do they? Do you?
Well, there are two sides to that. There is a certain segment of engineers that don't think like, say, other people may think. But the reality is, and I think you've heard me say this before, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Engineers are people too. So the same issues that people deal with, engineers deal with. So part of what I do is I'm packaging my message and my marketing and my outreach in a way in which they can hear it and see that there's someone out there to help them achieve the life that they want.
So when we take a look at the whole idea, James, of work-life balance, and it feels like it's an either or, that somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. Like either the employer is going to get the best of us or we're going to take advantage of the employer. When you first start to consult your clients, where do you start?
So I use a 4-step process that I walk clients through called the Engineer's Blueprint for Success. But before we even get there, I ask the 3 questions that I say changed my life. And these are the questions that came to me when my youngest son was born at 26 weeks in the day. He was 1 pound, 14 ounces. I had a 14-month-old at home. I had a wife who was concerned about her body breaking down because both children were born prematurely. So she was down on herself. I was working 110 miles north of where I live. I had a monster commute, but I had a great job, a great situation. In fact, it was my dream job. And it was the thing that I wanted to do. It was the next thing on the list. You know how we all have lists. And so I'm in that moment where my son is born early. We're having issues just at home. There's pressure at work. And so I asked myself these 3 questions. Do I want to win at work? My answer to that was yes. Do I want to win at home? Of course I do. I don't know many people that don't want to win at home. But then I asked myself the hardest question that was for me to be honest and answer, and that is, am I winning at work and at home? And at that time, I could not answer that question yes. And because of that, that led me on the journey to develop the process, to use it in my life, and to continue to use that. I've helped countless people design and live a life where they are winning at work and at home.
James, it seems like this is sort of like when we look at the political process, when our political process, which is, I'm sorry, kind of broken right now, but when it works well, it seems like compromise is at the center of the political process. Is that at the center of what you teach, learning that there needs to be some sort of compromise for everybody to sort of get what they should get?
I wouldn't use the word compromise, but I do talk in concepts of redesigning or redefining what success is. When I was 20 years old, success looked different than what it does at 50. When I was 20, success was getting my degree, hanging out with my buddies, eventually finding a wife, getting a good job. In my 30s, it was, okay, I really need to climb this career ladder. Not so much because I wanted to build wealth, because that's what I wanted to do. It was just, that's how I define success. As I got into my 40s, success was, oh, wait a minute. I have kids, I have a wife, I have a career. Now I have to figure out what this success really looked like for me right now. I cannot continue to move forward on the success that was defined before, because life is different. My circumstances are different. And sometimes we get caught in the gravity of how we've defined success in the past. And we don't take the time to redefine what success looks like moving forward. So we don't have anywhere that we're working towards.
So, James, what is the key then? Because, I mean, the $64,000 question is, how do we win at work and at home? I mean, it seems like if we do it right, everybody wins. If we do it wrong, somebody's going to lose.
When I take people through the engineer's blueprint, the first step is focus on what matters most. So we'll go through this process to really determine what matters to you at this stage in life. Not what used to matter to you, but what matters right now. After you have defined that, and we go through several processes to help you define that, then we take a look at how you're actually investing your time. So are you investing your time in those areas that you say matter most to you? And many times there's a gap. And when we see that gap and become aware of that gap, then the next step is, well, we need to close that gap. But what I really want you to do is envision what life would look like if that gap was closed. So imagine coming home for dinner, being there with your kids. Imagine being able to prepare well for the meetings that you have at work. It just depends on where you have defined where that gap is at. Then we design a plan to close that gap. And the last part is executing that plan. And so it's not so much compromise, and it's not rocket science, right? Even though I'm working with engineers and working with people with a STEM background, it's not rocket science. It is I would call a basic equation that we keep reusing over and over and over again, but it works.
Wow. So by defining it, then we sort of do a time inventory to see if the walk equals the talk. And
yes,
that's really cool. Andre, I'd love to, I mean, you've lived the engineering life for a long time. You've grown a company, you're an entrepreneur. What's your reaction? What's your perspective on all this?
Well, I don't live the engineering life. I'm definitely the cowboy outcast in this world. But the one thing I was going to say, like, if you don't write it, you can't define it. If it's in your head, like, that's the reality. Once it only becomes real when it's out of your head and on paper, even verbally, if you share it with someone. So for some reason, the universe will take care of it if you surround yourself with the right people. But yeah, the defining part makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that's applicable to anyone, be the entrepreneur, a corporate person working in a corporate world or government. The goals being written down. And I think to James' point too, a lot of people don't have clarity on what's important to them because I don't think they look internally enough to see what's important to me, because society has trained me that what I think is important, if it's not important for other people, it's not important to me. Mm-hmm. And to think that way is selfish. And I'm okay with the term selfish. It can have negative connotations and positive. So sometimes my selfish needs, if it fulfills me, brings me energy, that energy is shared with everyone in a positive way. Therefore, everyone else will be fulfilled. So 42 years later, I finally figured out it's time for me to be, I'm important. What I want to do is important. And then that helped me get to where I'm now, where I'm not doing everything with my family, my kids. I'm not doing everything for work, but I'm still fulfilled and I'm finding a better balance. It's not 50-50. I don't care what anyone says. You can't do 50-50. And I really like what James said at that time. Like at 26 versus 46, everything changes. Yep. So this month, I have to do more work because of the current situation, still being cognizant and present when I am home. But next month, I'm going to increase my home life or my personal life and then reduce the work. So it's always in flux. But me knowing what's important to me first and writing down my goals, like when this second life tempest occurred a few months ago, I wrote down what I wanted to see at the end, how I'm going to attack it. Mm-hmm. And that brings clarity to it. So, and I like the term, the engineer's blueprint, about what matters most.
Yeah. And so, Andre, what I will say is, and you're probably doing this, but if you're not, make sure you are communicating often at home and at work. Because as these things shift and change, one of the things that happens, some of the private clients that I work with, they think that their spouse is a mind reader and they're making these changes and they're doing these things, but they're not communicating what's actually going on. And what I found that's worked for me is to be able to communicate, hey, honey, here are the things that are going on. I have these projects that are coming over the next month. I'm going to be pretty tapped out, but then the following month we'll be able to do X. So one, that helps to kind of strengthen communication, but it also it puts in a piece of accountability for you, because my kids are going to keep me accountable. My wife is going to keep me accountable. The boys are going to come in and say, hey, Dad, you said that you were going to have more time to do X, what's going on.